On an Anatolian plain baked hard as hammered bronze, a single streak of sunlight flashes off a whistling arrow. The shaft tumbles past silk banners, past Romanian shields painted with Christ's Chi-Rho, and finds the exposed throat of an imperial horse. The war horse screams, pitching its rider into a dust cloud thick with the shattered past of 2 continents. That fallen rider is Byzantine Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, and in the time it takes for Seljuk hoofbeats to thunder around his dazed body, a millennium of Eastern Roman supremacy begins to crumble like sandstone caught in desert wind. Witnesses say the Seljuk Sultan Alp Arslan, hero lion, never stopped smiling, playing cat and mouse with legions that once humbled Persia and the Caliphate alike. But today is 26th August 1071, and one misjudged march out of Manzikert will ignite a domino run. Turkish migrations, Crusader calls, and the ultimate strangling of Constantinople almost 4 centuries later. If ever a single arrow rewrote the atlas, it was loosed here, at the hinge between medieval faith and nomad fury. And it asks us a question that still rings in every boardroom and war room. How fragile is greatness when surrounded by foes who refuse to fight on your terms? Long before that arrow hissed, Byzantium's emperors boasted of walls no enemy could storm and treasuries no barter could empty. Yet by the mid-11th century, cracks zigzagged through the marble facade. Civil wars among purple-born princes drained provincial garrisons. Tax farms strangled Anatolian peasants until they welcomed any overlord who levied lighter tithes. And the new Western menace, Norman freebooters from Sicily, raided the Adriatic while an Eastern rival took shape beyond the Caucasus. That rival was the Great Seljuk Empire, a confederation of Oghuz Turkoman tribes distilled into a cavalry doctrine as fluid as mountain snowmelt. Where Byzantium trusted walls and heavy infantry, Seljuks trusted steppe stallions and composite bows that could punch through lamellar at 300 paces. In 1064, Alp Arslan, brave lion, captured Ani, the city of 1,000 churches, proving to Christian and Muslim chroniclers alike that the caliph's new sword lay not in Baghdad, but in the hands of Turkic Ghazis eager for land and loot. Emperor Romanos IV ascended Constantinople's crimson porphyry throne in 1068 with a mission: stabilize the eastern frontier. He was no silk-slippered bureaucrat. He'd campaigned against Arabs in Syria and defeated Pechenegs on the Danube. Yet politics inside the palace of Blachernae were deadlier than any battlefield. Constantine the X's scholarly sons and their mother, the Empress Dowager Eudokia, viewed Romanos as a jumped-up general whose marriage into the imperial family threatened their scholarly reign. Still, Senate decrees could not plug the hemorrhage in Anatolia. Seljuk raids fanned out each spring, lifting livestock, torching villages, and slicing caravan arteries that fed Constantinople's import addiction. Merchants howled, monasteries penned angry treatises, and frontier strategoi begged for men. Romanos bundled silver from the still rich Balkans, hired Frankish and Norman mercenaries, and drilled 2 new tagmata of heavy infantry around icon-plated standards. His first Anatolian march in 1068 pushed raiders back to the Euphrates, but convinced him the empire could no longer fight small wars. Only a decisive strike against the Seljuk heartland would reverse the momentum. By winter 1070-71, he prepared the largest eastern expedition since Basil Thekin, 50,000 in total if you count camp followers, including Varangian axe-bearers, frangible Pecheneg auxiliaries, and a nervous core of native thematic troops who hadn't seen pay on time in years. Yet the plan was already compromised. Court factions back home bribed generals, hoping failure might unseat the upstart. And far from Constantinople's evening chandeliers, Seljuk scouts relayed every Byzantine campfire back to Alp Arslan, who had just concluded a truce with the Fatimids in Syria, freeing his main army to face Romanos. The spring sun of 1071 rose over an Anatolian frontier that had not known quiet in a generation. Romanos IV, Diogenes, bronzed from 3 campaigns already, watched the river Euphrates glimmer like a coiled serpent below his vantage ridge near Melitene, and murmured that whoever ruled the crossings ruled the future. Around him, the imperial host sprawled in all the chaotic color of a multi-ethnic empire. Scarlet-cloaked tagmata of Constantinople, shaggy-haired Varangian axe-bearers fresh from Nordic fjords, Frankish lancers glittering in borrowed mail, Pecheneg riders in wolfskin hats, and behind them, the plodding baggage train, oxen, sutlers, tethered goats, laundresses, relic-bearing monks, and accountants guarding pay chests. 50,000 souls by the optimistic tally of Roman court panegyrists, perhaps 35,000 effectives by the sterner math of grain wagons. The army took 2 full days to ferry across, using rope-lashed pontoon boats commandeered from Armenian merchants. Each time a Varangian long axe clanged on the planking, quartermasters winced. Repair timber was scarce. Romanos, eager to keep schedule, ordered foragers deep into fields, sprouting green barley heads. Peasants protested until paid in debased numismata that looked gold only at sunset. Yet morale peaked. Rumors swirled that the emperor would strike past Manzikert, storm the Seljuk depot at Ray, and return with so much booty the treasury scales in Hagia Sophia would groan. Alp Arslan's scouts, wearing sheepskin coats the color of steppe dust, counted every Byzantine picket fire. Messages raced east on relay ponies. The Roman dog marches heavy and hungry. Bleed him. The Sultan himself camped near Lake Van, concluding a treaty with the Fatimids. The dispatch reached him during evening prayer. He smiled, according to chronicler Ibn al-Athir, and said, "God has brought the game to the hunter." In 1 hour, he flipped the war chest, paying every cavalryman 4 months' advance and promising silk sacks of the emperor's own coin to the rider who first touched a Roman standard. At Romanos' field council outside the ruined walls of Samosata, maps spread across a drum, debate crackled. The fortress of Manzikert lay northeast, commanding the pass to Armenia. The lakeside citadel of Kaliat sat southeast, shielding supply coming from Persia. Seize both and the Seljuks must sue for terms, so argued the strategos Joseph Attaleiates, veteran of Iberian wars. Romanos approved a split march. He would lead the bulk on the northern road. Attaleiates would gallop south with the Frankish mercenaries, Turkopol light horse, and half the Pecheneg screen. Critics later called the decision lunacy. Yet in that hour it felt Caesar bold, a way to envelope Alp Arslan if he tried to dart between. Romanos wrote orders in purple ink, sealed with Leo's head, and handed them to Attaleiates beneath a tattered tent awning flapping like an omen. The 2 men clasped wrists. Neither suspected the string of mishaps ahead. A map copied wrong, a scout bribed, a mountain storm that swallowed signal fires, and a Seljuk night raid that stampeded Attaleiates' horses. When the emperor reached Manzikert on 23 August, he assumed his right wing marched in tandem only a day behind. In fact, they were already spiraling toward Trebizond, convinced the main army destroyed. Manzikert's defenders offered token resistance. Archers loosed a few shafts, then vanished into back alleys, dragging families towards Seljuk lines. Byzantine trumpeters sounded a triumph flourish. Banners climbed the gatehouse, and Romanos strode through the shattered barbican sensing destiny. But the citadel's storerooms were bare, wells fouled with dead goats, and the garrison granary, a massive barrel-vaulted hall, had been torched, its wheat melded into blackened slag. Scouts galloped back reporting Seljuk cavalry clouds on every horizon. The emperor posted the Varangians on the north wall, left Armenian levies to man the south, and rode the circuit midday, dust pluming around iron hooves. Below, in the valley where almond orchards wilted under August glare, he watched arrow skirmishes bloom like fireflies. Turkic riders canter in, loose a volley, wheel out while their tails stream colored ribbons. Byzantine mounted crossbowmen chase, armor clattering, only to find empty air. This dance repeated by the hour, bleeding horses, not men for the moment. Alp Arslan arrived on 24th of August with perhaps 30,000, no chronicler agrees, for steppe armies dissolved and coalesced like clouds. He dismounted near a spring, prayed 2 rakats, then addressed bays under a banner sewn with the prophet's sword. The lion need not devour in one bite. Nip, retreat, nip again until the prey bleeds from 1,000 needles. He forbade a general assault. Instead, bands of 100 galloped by rotation, arrows hissing from recurved bows of sinew and horn. For 3 sun-scalded days, Romanos' infantry stood in shield walls that grew shorter as casualties of thirst and heat mounted. Water-bearers trekking to distant streams lost half their number to arrow fire. Varangians cursed Norse oaths, begging to sally. The emperor refused. On open ground, Seljuk mobility would shred the line. Instead, he sent letters on homing pigeons east to search for Attaleiates. None returned. At dusk on the 25th, Andronikos Doukas, son of the Caesar John Doukas, and leader of the reserve Tagma, called his officers to a private council. The Doukas clan loathed Romanos. Letters in Constantinople promised Andronikos the throne if the emperor fell. What transpired, none recorded. But after the moon slipped behind Mount Saipan, Doukas' troops extinguished campfires and drifted west, leaving a hole behind the Byzantine center. Some said they fled fearing encirclement. Others swore they defected deliberately. Morning scouts found only trampled grass where the reserve had camped. Romanos, jaw clenched, redistributed Varangians to plug the gap. Their commander, a giant called Narcissus the Frank, warned this left the emperor's own bodyguard thin. "Better a thin line than a bleeding rear," Romanos answered. Dawn cracked yellow and cruel. Dust already hung above Seljuk lines, kicked up by horses trotting in mock charges. Romanos convened final council inside Manzikert's east gate. His plan: advance in echelon, Varangians in center, Armenian Thamada on left, Frankish mercenary cavalry on right. If Attaleiates arrived, they would strike Alp Arslan's flank. The watchword, whispered down ranks, was Kyrie Nike, Lord, give victory. Outside, Alp Arslan donned a white felt robe over mail to signify he might die that day. He placed his young son Malik Shah beside the banner and told riders, "If I fall, you have the Sultan still, obey him." He released falcons skyward, an omen of victory to Turkic eyes, then formed his host in a shallow crescent. Light horse archers on wings, center held back, reserves hidden beyond low ridges. Romanos signaled advance just after the third hour. Trumpets blared, drums thudded, standards dipped forward. Infantry shuffled across stubble fields littered with broken arrow shafts. At first, progress felt unstoppable. Seljuk screen melted, horse archers fell back, and the Roman line cheered. But observers on the citadel noted the crescent bending wider, luring wings outward like a net. By mid-afternoon, Seljuk riders executed the craft perfected on the Central Asian steppes, feigned flight. They galloped away, twisting in saddles to loose parting arrows. Byzantine front ranks, blood up, pursued. Dust devils whirled, blinding depth perception. Officers shouted to maintain cohesion, voices muffled by clanking armor and arrow shrieks. Suddenly, Seljuk wings wheeled inward at extremities, closing the crescent into a horseshoe. Arrows now raked Byzantine flanks and rear. The emperor ordered halt, then withdrawal to original camp before nightfall. Trumpeters sounded recall, a triple blast, but signals drowned in din. Many units never heard. Varangians began orderly pivot. Armenian left, scorched by arrow storms, broke first, sprinting for perceived safety. Their route sideswiped a Pecheneg auxiliary contingent, who decided to flee as well. Some even joined Seljuk pursuers, lured by kinship and plunder. Dust thickened until daylight looked like twilight. Romanos, at the center atop a tall Arab charger named Balios, tried to anchor retreat. He wheeled constantly to show the purple cloak, shouting, "Stand by your Basileus!" Then fate intervened. A barbed Seljuk arrow, perhaps spent, and tumbling, perhaps loosed by a master bowman, struck Balios in the exposed lower neck. The stallion reared, geysering blood. Saddle cinch snapped. Horse and emperor crashed. Attendants rushed. Before they lifted him, Seljuk cavalry punched through the Varangian shield knot, spears stabbing. The Norsemen clawed back, axes glittering, but numbers overwhelmed them. Chronicler Attaleiates describes Romanos fighting on foot, sword in left hand, right dislocated, visor bent. Surrounded, he yielded only when a mace blow fractured his knee. A Turkish emir seized his belt, dragging him clear as arrows continued to fall, unaware whom he held. Emir Ayaz brought the blood-splattered prisoner before Alp Arslan at sundown. The Sultan, robes dusty, waited outside a black felt pavilion. He asked in Persian, "Who are you?" Romanos answered in broken Arabic, "I am the Emperor of the Romans. Conduct me with courtesy and fortune will favor you." The court expected execution. Instead, Arslan placed a boot gently on Romanos' neck, symbolic subjugation, then lifted him, wiped his own sleeve across the emperor's brow and sat him beside the throne cushion. "What would you do if I were your prisoner?" he asked. Romanos replied, "Perhaps strike your face, parade you in Constantinople." Arslan laughed. "My punishment is heavier, I forgive you. He ordered rose water for washing wounds and iced sherbet for thirst. Negotiations began before moonrise. 10 days truce, ransom of 1.5 million dinars, and a marriage alliance. On the battlefield, collapse turned massacre. The central tagmata, unaware of the emperor's fate, attempted square formations but found arrows whistling from every quadrant. Frankish lancers tried breakout west. Seljuk lasso teams dragged knights from saddles, finishing them with yatagans. Varangians formed a final ring around their dragon banner. Chanting a hymn to St. Olaf, they fought past dusk until only heaps of mail and pale hair remained. A Seljuk chronicler wrote, "Their axes cut through men like scythes through barley, but the field had no end." Thousands of Byzantine soldiers fled into Manzikert fortress only to discover provisions gone. Many bribed their way through Seljuk cordons at night, slipping toward the Black Sea. Others hid among Armenian villages. Some sold swords for bread and vanished into peasantry. Word galloped west faster than survivors. By October, news reached Constantinople. Army destroyed, emperor captive. The Dukas faction crowned young Michael VII, branding Romanos traitor. The political coup ensured no unified response to reclaim lost forts. Seljuk Ghazis poured through Defallen Valley, herding sheep, planting yurts, claiming Sipahi fiefs, IQTA. Local themes, starved of imperial gold, surrendered. Entire Anatolian map turned Turkish within a generation. Caesarea became Kayseri. Iconium became Konya. Smyrna watched minarets rise beside church domes. Romanos, released after paying partial ransom, returned to a city that spat him out. Blinded on orders of Michael VII, the former emperor bled to death from infected sockets in a Marmara monastery. Alp Arslan, meanwhile, rode east to chastise Kara Khanid rebels, wearing on his belt a reliquary said to hold a splinter of the true cross gifted by Romanos, trophy and warning all at once. Manzikert's true casualty list was geopolitical. Byzantium lost the tax base of Asia Minor, its breadbasket and soldier nursery. Without it, the empire hired more mercenaries, taxing the capital till riots sparked. Pope Urban II, hearing pleas from Emperor Alexios a decade later, preached the First Crusade to salvage Anatolia. The West answered, but crusaders carved their own principalities instead. Seljuk sultans in Konya kept pressure until 1204, when Venetians diverted the Fourth Crusade to sack Constantinople itself. Hence, the arrow that downed Balios echoed all the way to 15th century canon at the Golden Horn. Steppe historians teach that victory at Manzikert proved not just martial superiority but ideological. Islam carried on nomad hooves could humble heirs of Rome. Yet Seljuk poets remembered the battle differently, as a testament to fortune's whim. One quatrain from Baba Tahir laments, "An empire fell for want of a horse's whisper. A realm arose on dust of borrowed stirrups." Modern strategists find other lessons. Never divide forces when intelligence is thin. Never discount mobility's power over mass. And never wage war where your logistics bleed by the hour. If you walk Manzikert today, shepherd boys may guide you to shallow depressions where wildflowers tilt around shards of chainmail. Local lore claims this ground sometimes reveals arrowheads after rain, slender iron tongues that once sang the fate of nations. Hold one, feel its surprising lightness, and sense how fragile empire can be. Only a sliver of metal, feather-fletched, guided by wind and will, yet able to pierce a stallion's vein, and, with it, the jugular of history. Stand on Manzikert's rolling plateau today, amid fields of golden wheat interspersed with basalt outcrops, and wind still whistles like distant arrows. No triumphal arch marks the place where Rome's heirs lost half an empire in a single dusk. Yet modern maps whisper the consequence. Konya, Kayseri, Ankara, cities reborn under Turkish names because one afternoon's panic cracked the Byzantine shell like a dropped amphora. Romanos returned from captivity only to be deposed, blinded, and left to die in a monastic cell. Alp Arslan marched east, never living to see how farmer tribes would turn Anatolia into the beating heart of a new sultanate. But the real lesson is broader. Inertia is not invincibility. An institution can survive centuries of siege, yet still unravel in hours when greed, pride, and miscommunication align with an enemy who rewrites the rules of engagement. Did this arrow shot of history hit its mark for you? Then loose your own volley. Share this story with a strategist friend. Subscribe for weekly deep dives where one decision reshapes continents, and comment which clash, Lepanto's galleys, Agincourt's mud, or Dien Bien Phu's valleys, you want unscrolled next. Smash the like button so YouTube's algorithm keeps our history battalion supplied, and ring the bell lest the next lesson ride past you in whistling silence. Remember, in the age of information, curiosity is the sharpest spear,